anti-sexual harassment policies. And I'm glad that Yar'Adua Center is working with another Ford grantee, Gender Mobile, to have such policies in place. A policy that is well-defined, has forceful language, and is accessible. The administration of the institution needs to make it quite clear that sexual assault and harassment will not be tolerated in their community. The second is to establish a complaint mechanism that is not only just, but is accessible and transparent, and also protects the reporter's privacy, which is the whistleblowing portal, and also an app that Gender Mobile, one of our partners and one of the partners of Yar'Adua Foundation, are also supporting. So, of course, because of this, the third, which I failed to mention, is that is education and awareness. That's really critical if we're going to address this. Like I said, there are so many people who don't even know whether as survivors, victims, or perpetrators, that what's happening is sexual harassment, because it's, sexual harassment it does not just happen. I always say that it is learned behavior. People learn it, and it's behavior that then needs to be unlearned for us to correct it. It doesn't just happen. For instance, within a 5-month period in 2020, the Inspector General of Police had reported a total of 717 reported rape, despite a 31% rate of experience of violence by females. So to address and curb this disturbing form of gender-based violence, Ford is supporting innovative and effective strategies, including a range of solutions and services for prevention, accountability, and support, bordering on psychosocial, medical, and trauma support. Of course, in partnership with organizations like the Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua Foundation, government, and other civil society organizations. It is therefore for this reason that I'm really delighted to be here today, that as students, you have taken this course upon yourselves, that you have chosen to amplify your voices on a critical issue like this. This is remarkable. And that it's in history, we've established that when people take a stand on something and decide that enough is enough and begin to swing the pendulum in the right direction, we can finally make the change that we want to see. I want to thank you very much and believe that at the end of this forum, we'll all be better equipped to deal with this issue of sexual harassment in Nigerian universities. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Olufunke Barua, for the opening remarks. Strong policies, complaint mechanisms that are effective, and public education are the way to go to address this issue in tertiary institutions. Now, we will have special remarks delivered by the head of the European Union delegation to Nigeria, Ambassador Samuela Isopi, represented by the Deputy Head of Delegation to Nigeria, Mr. Alexandra Borges Gomez. Mr. Alexandra Borges Gomez is the European Union's Deputy Head of Delegations to Nigeria with the rank of First Counselor. He is a career EU diplomat, and this is his 6th posting to EU delegations, following Brazil, Turkey, Angola, Pakistan, and Guinea-Bissau. He is a UK-trained economist from the London School of Economics and holds 2 postgraduates from both the LSE in International Relations and the College of Europe in European Public Administration in Bruges in Belgium. He currently serves as the head of the political section of the delegation. Please join me as I welcome Mr. Alexandra Borges Gomez to deliver special remarks.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Now you know all about me, so I can go back to whence I came. I always admire people who try to pronounce my name. I'm Portuguese myself, so it's I know it's if it applies to, it covers 25 countries, of which Nigeria is one of them, which is it's a Spotlight initiative, which is financed by the European Union, and it's run in partnership with the United Nations, and it's multi-year. It's a very special program because, first of all, it's the largest that exists, that's financed by any institution or government, and it's global, and it tries. It's a very ambitious goal. That the idea would be to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls by 2030, which of course we realize is not an easy task, but this initiative we have here might not be the explicit violence, but the violence, as it was said, that it is implicit in sexual harassment. All of that, it's a contribution, it's all part of the same effort. For the Spotlight initiative, we deploy an integrated approach, which includes awareness raising about sexual harassment in tertiary institutions as well. So we have a part in that as well. We understand the vastness of the problem, of course, and I was particularly on researching a little bit before coming here. The idea that you would have a web-based platform where whistleblowers can come in anonymity and complain about this behavior. I think it's, personally, I wasn't aware that this existed here, and I think it sounds to me like an absolutely brilliant idea, the kind of thing that we should have had for a long time in the past. It works in other places, and it should work here as well. I think I'll stay on because I'm interested in finding out a bit more about this. I already did with the two previous speakers, and I thank you for your patience, and I hope you have a fruitful meeting today. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next to deliver special remarks is the Ambassador of Denmark to Nigeria, Ambassador Son Grokstrup. Ambassador Son Grokstrup is the Kingdom of Denmark Ambassador to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The ambassador has a background in multilateral affairs, peace and stabilization programs in Africa and Palestine. The ambassador was responsible for overseeing the Danish peace and stabilization interventions in the Sahel, Horn of Africa, in the Sahel and in the Horn of Africa, and has coordinated Danish development assistance to Ethiopia, the African Union, the Intergovernmental Authority and Development, and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Son Grokstrup.
Good morning, everybody. Dear representatives, dear colleagues, and dear friends, thank you for inviting me here today to deliver remarks. It's a privilege to be among such talented and committed individuals. It gives me hope that we will be able to make progress in terms of making education spaces safer, particularly for female students. Advocating for the rights of women and girls and combating sexual and gender-based violence are key political priorities for Denmark. The Danish strategy for development cooperation commits Denmark and Danish missions abroad to continue the fight for the rights of women and girls. We will continue to build alliances and draw the attention of decision makers to the fact that the rights of women and girls are often neglected. Women and girls are often the most vulnerable, and they need protection and special attention. This also goes for access to education and, equally important, access to safe education communities. For too long, we have failed to realize that women and girls are a valuable resource for our societies. Due to ignorant and stereotype perceptions of gender, we have failed to provide women and girls with equal opportunities, including access to safe education. Our combined future prosperity depends on our ability to create the right conditions for women and girls to thrive and to pursue their ambitions. It is not only our moral obligation to change this, it is also a prerequisite for fast and sustainable economic development. Any society that fails to create a conducive and safe environment for female workers and female students will, over time, fall behind. Therefore, it is in everybody's interest that we put spotlight on the need to make education communities in Nigeria safer. Let me conclude these brief remarks by thanking the organizers for their commitment and hard work. You inspire all of us to do more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Gokstrup. Also here to deliver special remarks is the Secretary General of RAPA, Hajia Saudatu Madi. Hajia Saudatu is the Secretary General of Women's Rights Advancement and Protection Alternative, a rights-based national nonprofit advocating for equity and equality of opportunities for women and girls in Nigeria. Under her leadership, RAPA has offered legal aid and counseling support to over 15,000 women across Nigeria, positively impacting the lives of abused women and girls. In 2011, she was awarded the National Honor of Member of the Order of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, MFR, by the Federal Government of Nigeria, in recognition of her contributions to the promotion and defense of women's rights. She has served on the Council of Nigeria's National Human Rights Commission. Hajia Saudatu has also served as Deputy Secretary of the Northern States Governors Forum Committee on Reconciliation, Healing and Security, and Intervention on the Crisis in Northeast Nigeria. At the international level, she has served as Nigeria's advisor for the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. She is also a founding member of the citizen-driven Bring Back Our Girls campaign, advocating for the rescue and return of Nigeria's 219 Chibok girls. Hajia Saudatu has contributed to Nigeria's national dialogue on the subject of identity and diversity in papers and presentations. She promotes a position on the legitimacy of diversity in negotiations for peaceful coexistence and as a positive trigger for national development. She'll be joining us virtually. Everybody welcome with me, Hajia Saudatu Madi. Hajia Saudatu, if you can hear us, unmute your mic and deliver your remarks. Thank you. Can you confirm that she's able to hear us? Okay, we seem to not have a hold of her yet. Thank you. Okay, so now we would invite Miss Halima Mohammed for her remarks while we wait to get a hold of Hajia Saudatu, hopefully. Ms. Halima Mohammed is the Student Government Association President of American University, Yola. Halima is an international and comparative politics major at the American University of Nigeria. She graduated overall best art student from Nigeria Turkish International College, Abuja. While at AUN, she served as a treasurer and vice president of the Politics and Peace Studies Society, the assistant head of society, a biology teaching assistant, a member of the AUN Judicial Affairs, the public relations officer for the Art Club, a stage manager for the Theatre Club, an assistant director, and now president of the Student Government Association. Yes, I think we should. She has been involved in various community service and development programs, such as the Public Speaking Empowerment Program, where dozens of secondary school students were taught public speaking skills, and a computer literacy program for the new foundation school students at AUN. She has been placed on the President's and Dean's list for academic excellence for 5 successive semesters. Please let's welcome Halima Mohammed. Thank you. Please, you can do better than that.
According to the Statista Research Department, there were 59 cases of sexual violence reported in Nigeria in 2019. 59. Ghana, a country that is 1/6 the size of ours, recorded 678. Now, either we are saints in this country or something is not adding up. As my generation would say, the math is not mathing. Ladies and gentlemen, I am indeed humbled to be a part of this momentous occasion, discussing a matter whose relevance cannot possibly be overemphasized. When the whistleblowing platform was first launched at AUN, I remember speaking to a friend of mine. A seminar had just been held explaining in detail how the website works, how the choice of anonymity works, and intricacies like that. She said to me, "This is such a good thing, but unfortunately, no one is going to use it." I was so confused. I replied, "What a sweeping assumption. Why would you say that?" And she answered, "You think people are comfortable or protected enough to report sexual harassment in Nigeria?" To that end, she had a point. Albeit an all over the world issue, it's not just a Nigerian issue. We had only recently started entertaining taboo topics such as this one on a broad scale. Even while strides have been made in the discourse, we are still a long way from the promised land. Furthermore, there is still a lingering fear that snitches get stitches, right? It has been the norm for so long that even when the feature of anonymity is guaranteed, the trust issues have consolidated already. It just takes that one brave girl or brave boy to blow the whistle, have justice be served, then he or she tells someone, "Look, I blew the whistle and I'm still alive." And then that person be empowered to do that, and then the chain continues. With the whistleblowing platform, the goal is not to wipe out perpetrators, because that would be a utopian pursuit in my opinion, but rather to wipe out impunity. When people no longer get away with committing vile acts, the statistics will reduce dramatically. The first step in solving any social issue is to acknowledge that there is, first and foremost, a problem. Done. Then you have to get people talking about it. Done. Then you have to proffer solutions. Done. Then you have to normalize that conversation. Not done. This is where we hit a snag. Because only and only if that conversation is normalized can people's perceptions on it be reformed. This is where I believe students come in. In the simplest role and simultaneously the hardest role, that is keeping the conversation alive, dialogue, We've heard it a million times, right? Awareness. Unfortunately, it is always easier said than done. For some weird reason, everything seems possible up here. I wonder why. But if any generation is going to get the job done, best believe it is this one, vocal Gen Z. And if not for anything, but for the sheer audacity of these people. I would like to conclude by appreciating the Foundation for launching the whistleblowing platform and for organizing this illustrious event. It is truly remarkable what has been accomplished and what I am sure will be accomplished in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Halima, for reminding us and telling us that this is the generation that is going to end this, right? Thank you very much. Now we want to also invite someone else who's a young person who also is addressing this issue in her capacity. Modupe Mary Adetiba, the President, Nigerian Association of Female Students. Modupe has spent most of the last 6 years actively involved in youth activism, working on broader issues that affect young people, particularly students in environments of learning. She advocates for policies to preserve the dignity and bodily autonomy of female students across Nigerian campuses. And in the last 2 years, she has forged collaborations across geographies, industries, and sectors to foster and promote young people's involvement in addressing issues that affect their lives. Currently, she is the 3rd executive president of the National Female Students Association of Nigeria, the umbrella body of all female students in Nigeria. Her recent and most profound work revolves around combating the remote and proximate causes of campus sexual assault, with a focus on sex for grades as a form of gender-based corruption that could limit education outcomes. Modupe Adetiba is intentional about creating an intergenerational mentorship platform for students to galvanize support that would enable a seamless transition from school politics to mainstream politics and build the capacity of youth in leadership as agents of change. Please join me and welcome Modupe Adetiba.
Every student deserves a safe learning environment. I want to recognize all dignitaries here present, head of European Union delegates, ably represented, Ambassador of Denmark to Nigeria, our virtual dignitary, the Secretary General of RAPA, and other dignitaries. Greatest Nigerian student. Greatest Nigerian student. Articulate Nigerian student. We are not here. Greatest Nigerian student. Thank you very much. I am pleased to join the Foundation for this public policy forum to amplify student voices and to give us a platform to educate and promote protective policy for gender justice. I commend the Foundation, Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua Foundation, and its leadership for all its works and efforts put into the whistleblowing platform. I also want to commend all the partner organizations for the synergy to make our environments of learning safe. Gender-based violence persists in our environment of learning, of which is no news that female students were the most victim. And the perpetrator can either be an educator, intimate partner, or colleague. We might be wondering if our advocacy over the years, campaigns over time are not enough to mitigate the prevalence of gender violence in our environments of learning. if our engagements and activities are changing the narratives at all. Ladies and gentlemen, the issue of gender-based violence is a case of no retreat, no surrender in our community. And it is everyone's business to ensure our environment of learning is safe from any form of violence. Greatest Nigerian students, our institution will be safer for us. That very moment, we are determined to speak against molestation, harassment, unwanted sexual comments, and abuse of power, among others. We have to understand the numerous role of we as students as critical stakeholders, which are, but not limited to, being a good bystander whose cause value is to see something and say something. Being proactive in safeguarding the vulnerable from being victimized through our intervention saving a girl from being taken advantage of. Being your neighbor's safe space, listen and believe survivors. Create a safer environment for everyone by challenging your peers to reflect on their behavior and speaking of when someone crosses the line, and by enlisting the help of others if you don't feel safe. Do not blame the victim. Learn from the victim's stories. It is another pandemic to shift blame on the victim. Being accountable to take a stand by calling it out when you see it. Catcalling inappropriate sexual comments, cyber attacks on victims, bullying, stalking, and lots more. Having said this, I empathize with the family of Nigerian students that lost their lives as a result of gender-based violence, in reference to Vera Omosu of Uniben, Barakat Bello of College of Animal Science, Oyo, Deborah Samuel from Shehu Shagari College of Education, Sokoto, and many more. We pray that the soul of the deceased rest on in power. And to every survivor, the first bold step was coming out alive. However, rapists and abusers multiply when victims or bystanders are silent. Speak up to protect tomorrow's victim. On this note, I appreciate everyone passionate about curbing the pandemic we called gender-based violence, and stakeholders for their engagements and impact so far across our campuses. While I congratulate once again Shehu Musa Yar'Adua Foundation for all their great work, I hope that the discussion from this great event will enhance the student community on the need to become champions of gender equality, and also provides a way forward for the foundation in empowering Nigerian female students. Lastly, the foundation can count on the Nigerian Female Student Association readiness and commitment as partners, also as beneficiaries, to cooperate and support your efforts across campuses in Nigeria to address policy gaps regarding issues of sexual harassment and safeguarding. Once again, congratulations to us Nigerian students. Congratulations, Shehu Musa Yar'Adua Foundation. Thank you. I am Modupe Mary Adetiba, the third Executive President, Nigerian Female Students.
Thank you, Modupe Adetiba, for bringing the voices of great Nigerian students to this conversation. And now, for the keynote address, we would have the honor to invite Her Excellency Dame Mrs. Pauline Kedem-Tallinn, OFR KSG, the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs. Her Excellency Dame Mrs. Pauline Tallinn has a Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology and attended a Harvard University program for Strategy and Public Sector Negotiations at the John F. N. Kennedy School of Government. She has received numerous awards, such as World Ambassador of Peace, Interreligious and International Federation for World Peace, October 2000, the National Honor, Officer of the Order of the Federal Republic, OFR, by His Excellency President Olusegun Obasanjo, CFR, in 2005. Award of Excellence by the National Association of Zumunta, Washington, D.C., in January 2000. And African Icon of Our Generation Award 2015, the Woman of the Year Award, presented by the International Center for Comparative Leadership for Africans and Blacks in Diaspora, Accolade Communications Limited, and many more. Her Excellency is a member of many national and international organizations. She is also a member of several professional, social, and religious bodies. She is the current Minister of Women Affairs in Nigeria and a Papal Knight of the Order of St. Gregory. Let's all welcome Her Excellency Dame Pauline Talen, ably represented by Princess Jumai Aidonije.
Thank you. Great Nigerian students. Great Nigerian students. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to observe all protocols that have been established. I bring you warm greetings from the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, Dame Pauline Talen, OFR KSG, who would have loved to be here. But as you all know, she's just recuperating, and she has sent her good wishes. It's good to be here, and we recognize the presence of members of the diplomatic corps who have come to share the platform with our students. And so I want to encourage the students to count themselves lucky for having such a dynamic group of persons joining here today. I also want to say this morning that the presence of Professor Aino is something we need to all celebrate. Professor Aino is an icon. She's a consultant running the National Gender Policy. I want to pay tribute to her because she's really tried to make the university community safe for all of us. Professor Aino, please could you just rise and be celebrated this morning. It is truly amazing and an honor to participate in this public policy discussion with the theme, Making University Communities Safer, Role of Students. And on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, Dame Pauline Talen, OFR KSG, I want to thank you for the opportunity of realizing that the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs is also a stakeholder in making the communities safe. The Federal Ministry of Women Affairs is the national gender machinery for the advancement of women and children, the less privileged and the voiceless, including the girl child. The issues of sexual harassment took an enormous turn in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria, which resulted to a spike. Sexual harassment involves the unwanted imposition of sexual gratification in the context of unequal power relations. It is a menace that bedevils all public and private spaces worldwide, with severe consequences to productivity, power dynamics, enable gender-based violence and sexual harassment to thrive. Sexual harassment has become a recurring phenomenon in environments of learning, particularly in tertiary institutions across Nigeria. And the question is, why is it in the Nigerian universities that are supposed to be the citadels of learning, the citadels where our younger generation can aspire to be the best in trying to change the narratives in our societies? The spate of these patterns of violence has partly been attributed to poor individual and institutional response, lack of clear policies, poor implementation and lack of reporting channels, violence does not just happen, it is a learned behavior. The families make up the society, and everyone comes from a family. Mothers are the bedrock of the family and custodians of family traditions. We must play our part in molding our male children, even our female children, to become better adults who can take on marital responsibilities without feeling insecure. We must put an end to the culture of reinforcing male dominance in our society. And that is why the wordings of the women's anthem is very apt. It says, "Women can't be silent when all around the world people hurt and hungry children cry. We must rise for justice and development and make the rights of all the people high." And so, of course, given these high levels of acceptance of sexual harassment, there's little incentive for survivors, particularly women and girls, to report their experiences with sexual harassment. Nobody wants to be the poster child for sexual harassment, further exposing vulnerable persons to abuse and exploitation. This is reflected in the low rates of formal reporting of rape and other forms of physical violence. Within a 5-month period in 2020, the Inspector General of Police reported a total of 717 cases. Women and girls are abused and shamed both in public and private spaces, with little accountability, resulting in the denomination of gender-based violence as a shadow pandemic during the onslaught of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. While commending the social media for reporting and spotlighting the issues, it is also worrisome that instead of helping out victims and survivors of sexual-based violence and taking action to protect them, people are using the pain and trauma of others to pursue clout through videos and pictures online. The ministry has been at the forefront of legal and regulatory frameworks to address gender-based violence and sexual harassment in particular, advocating for the enactment and implementation of many policies and laws, including the National Gender Policy, which has just been reviewed. We now have it as National Gender Policy 2021 to 2016, and Professor Aino is the lead consultant on that. The Child Rights Act 2003, as of today, we have 31 states that have domesticated that. The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, as of today, we have 34 states that have finally domesticated from 19 that we had in from 13 that we had in 2019. We also have the Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal of Sexual Harassment in Tertiary Educational Institutions Act. We have the National Situation Room, which is a project in partnership with the European Union and UNDP under the Spotlight Initiative. As of today, we have over 7,000 reported cases that have been uploaded on the platform, out of which we have a little bit below 40 cases that have been concluded and over 300 closed cases. Why are the cases closed? Because families do not want to continue to spend money, energy, because of the legal process. You know how expensive and rigorous it is and all that. We also have the Interministerial Committee on Gender-Based Violence that's headed by the Honorable Minister of Justice and co-chaired by the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs. This was a committee that was put in place to synchronize all issues around sexual and gender-based violence in 2020 at the peak of the reporting processes on high level of gender-based violence in the country. From the north and south, east and west, several cases are reported daily, and there is the need for us to remind the masses that due process is in place to address each and every one of these cases. We can no longer be silent and watch our society degenerate to a level where gender-based violence is practiced with impunity. Perpetrators need to be told that Nigeria is a society with zero tolerance against all forms of gender-based violence. President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, is committed to seeing an end to gender-based violence. You'll recall that the 36 state governors have unanimously declared a state of emergency against gender-based violence. For instance, some states have gone further to say that perpetrators will be castrated. I don't want to mention the states. The 9th National Assembly is equally committed to this cause, resulting in the declaration of a state of emergency that has brought about the University Act against gender-based violence. Ignorance is not an excuse. You need to make sure you are aware. We are also concerned that each day, as we're fighting against gender-based violence and making our communities safe, the musical industry is also reinforcing these issues through the lyrics that we listen to. We have to be very careful. Our university students, most of our people graduate from there and they support this music. There's some music that are really not good and do not help in the fight against gender-based violence. We must, as Nigerian students also, rise to condemn some of this music. If we do not create the markets, they will not sell. I thank you for your attention and time. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. The message from the Honorable Minister is clear. The government will not be silent and allow impunity to continue. Thank you once again. Now we would watch a short video on the role of students in detecting, preventing, and reporting safeguarding incidents on campus. I believe we're ready for the video.
I was mopping Block C that morning. I didn't even see him. After touching me like that, he just laughed, as if he did nothing wrong. This wasn't the first time. When my supervisor assigned me to clean his office, I tried to swap with another person, but I couldn't tell how why. I was so happy when I saw the office was empty, but then good afternoon, sir. I saw the look in his eyes. I just knew. I knew what he was going to do. He grabbed me and tried to make me sit on his lap. I told him no, but he said if I didn't do what he wanted. Come on. No, sir. No. Sir, please. Please, sir. That was when she walked up to me and asked me what happened. When I told her what he did to me.
Look, you have to report him. You have to.
I tried reporting him before, but nothing happened. I told her nothing would happen because I had reported him before. She showed me a website and assured me they were going to help me.
Me, Mama. Okay, what are you? I'm 22. Mima, you'll be fine, okay? Everything will be fine.
I'm grateful you allowed me share my story of what he did to me. I will not be silenced.
Please, another round of applause. You will agree with me that that was a great production. This is exactly what we want to be seeing happening on our campuses. And we would like to appreciate the team that put this production together. Some of them are in the audience, some of them are not here. I would just like you to put your hands together for Obi Nachimezie, Rotipin Tobiloba, Blessing Uzero, Kayode Ayebusi, Odaro Ibako, and Nadine Ibrahim. Thank you very much to the team. Now it's time for, okay, if they're here, the ones who are in the audience, can they please stand so that we can really appreciate you more? Nadine? Oh, okay, thank you so much. Great job, thank you so much. So now we would be having a conversation. A lot has been said about, and is still being said about, duty bearers and their responsibilities. But this panel would be speaking about students, the role of students, and the voices of students in this conversation. So to join us in this panel is, we have a great group of people. I'll start by introducing someone who is an icon in this struggle and has already been, appreciated, but will still want to hear her voice here today. Professor Olabisi Aina. Professor Olabisi Idowu Aina. She's a professor of sociology and gender studies at Obafemi Awolowo University. Professor Olabisi is a professor of sociology and gender studies at OAU Ile-Ife, Nigeria, with about 30 years of university teaching and research experience. Her scholarly publication, I thought I would hear a round of applause at that. Her scholarly publications are in the area of sociology of work and gender studies. Please, let's welcome Professor Olabisi to the podium. Please, let's encourage her. We can do better than that. Thank you. Next on this panel to join us virtually is Dr. Azizat Yeshau. Dr. Azizat is Speaker of the National Youth Parliament. Azizat Yeshau is a medical doctor and the first female Speaker of the Nigeria Youth Parliament, with over 6 years of active experience in grassroots mobilization, citizen engagement, and stakeholder management. She has worked with NGOs such as Involve Africa and Consultation Lab to advance democracy and human rights. Her current project is the PVC for Her campaign in Lagos, and it is sponsored by the US Consulate to empower young women to effectively participate in elections. She is an alumnus of the Walter Carrington Fellowship, the US International Visitor Leadership Program, and the Young Women Political Leadership School. Azizat is also a former member of the Lagos State Youth Parliament and a former speaker of the Lagos State University Medical Association Senate. As an advocate for good governance and expert in resource galvanization for quality political leadership, she has consistently worked on impactful projects and championed frontline conversations. She mentors many young people as she believes that their energy and potential, if properly harnessed, can serve as catalyst for exponential sustainable development. Azizat is the founder of the Ethics and Political Leadership Foundation, which is an NGO committed to driving effective democracy and good governance in Nigeria. She is also the co-founder of Constitution Lab, which is a youth-led organization committed to providing Nigerians with working knowledge of the Nigerian Constitution. Welcome online, Azizat Yeshau, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a long read, but I do really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next on to join this panel is Olanike Adelakun, instructor at the American University of Nigeria, Yola. Olanike Adelakun has 13 years of teaching and research experience. She is an instructor at the School of Law, American University of Nigeria, as well as the course coordinator for the Gender-Based Violence in Emergencies Capacity Building course in collaboration with UNFPA. She is an alumnus of the Hague Academy of International Law, the Netherlands. She has implemented capacity building programs on GBV in emergencies and ending violence against women and girls in collaboration with UNFP and UN Women, respectively. Her areas of scholarly engagement include human rights, family law, gender studies, reproductive health and rights, as well as women and child protection, all within the field of private international law. Olanike is widely published her areas of engagement. She is an active member of International Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA, and offers pro bono cases in conjunction with the organization. She's also one of the coordinators of the AUN School of Law Clinic, which offers free legal services to the AUN community and beyond. Please, let's welcome Olanike Adelakun. Thank you. Next on this panel is Teniola Nafisat Balogun. Teniola Nafisat Balogun is a creative writer and student kinesiologist. She is the lead representative of Poets in Nigeria, BUK Connect Center. Her work has been featured in Wingless Dreamer and other local newspapers. Tenny perceives poetry as a realm of personal sanity and is the author of the chapbook Sticks, Stones, and Sanity. Please, let's welcome Teniola Balogun. And now to invite the moderator of this panel, who is one of the leading voices for young people on this issue, Omowumi Ogunrotimi, the founder, Gender Mobile Initiative. Omowumi Ogunrotimi is the founder of Gender Mobile, an initiative leveraging technology to provide information and other services, including legal, counseling, and livelihood support. She's a development enthusiast and advocate with an academic background in law, and has worked in over 50 rural communities, creating safe spaces for vulnerable populations, particularly girls and women who are vulnerable to abuse and violence, by empowering them legally and promoting their access to justice. She's a 2018 Commonwealth Award recipient, the only Nigerian and only West African at the time, and the 2018 JCI 10 Outstanding Young People of the World honoree. She was awarded as one of the top 10 gender activists and advocates by the Institute of Justice and Reconciliation, South Africa. As a legal practitioner, she's committed to using innovative approaches to solve social problems at Gender Mobile Initiative, where she coordinates strategy and innovation. Let's welcome our moderator, Omowumi Ogunrotimi.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. So we're just going to dive right into it. So first, I would start by saying that in the past few years, the Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua Foundation, in collaboration with other civil society actors and critical stakeholders, has invested so much in creating an environment of learning where people would have educational experiences devoid of sexual violence. And I would say that the last year actually exposed the foundation to several learnings. And it's interesting to see that one of those learnings is actually translating into actionable steps right now. And that's why this particular summit is actually centering the voices of, students in the environment of learning. And I would say that I look forward to having a really interactive session with the panelists. You'd see that our panel composition is highly robust, and it's actually multi-generational. I'm particularly excited that Prof is here. It's good to see you again, Prof. I followed your work closely, and of course, I've also had really great opportunity to interact with you. The last time I saw you was at the Ekiti Gender Summit, so it's good to have you here again. One of the things I, noticed over the years that really stands out is the blend of, the theoretical and practical as far as your work is concerned. And I see also that you pioneered the Center for Gender and Development Studies in Ekiti State University, which also highlights, your investment in terms of supporting institutions of higher learning to develop framework to create safe spaces. And as such, I'm going to start this conversation with you by asking you, questions around environment of learning in terms of identifying behaviors that can be termed as abuse within a university community. You're quite familiar with the space. You've supported institutions to put policy and legal framework together. And I would say that you're actually an authority when it comes to addressing sexual harassment in the environment of learning. And because we also know that this is a pattern of behavior that constitutes abuse, it would really be good to hear from you the kind of behavior, the kind of pattern that you'd actually tag abuse in this space.
Thank you. And I also like to stand on the existing protocol. And I think particularly I'm excited to be here. Excited, because this is a discourse around almost my life. And I think I better start with that so that we look at the issue of how we're locating our harassment. And to let us know that it's like an uphill task. But I look back, like my sister just spoke about, who said this is a generation that will make a change. And so it's nice for me to start from my generation. And I think when I finished my MPhil, I think around 1985, and I wanted to start my PhD studies. And I took a title in gender. I'd always done, I don't know why I went to it. My BSc, my MPhil was around gender issues. Now I'm going into a PhD, and I my BSc actually spoke about women. So there was no problem about that. My MPhil spoke about women in cocoa production, and I was looking at time series analysis, about the roles at the time because we're in the wheat period. There was no problem about that. In my PhD, thinking deep or not thinking well, I took the word gender. And it took 6 months for my faculty to approve a title that has a gender concept. That tells you that when you are dealing with the issue of gender, whether overt harassment, whether those things that you take for granted yourself, it is a lot of ignorance. It's a lot of ignorance. I remember at the time, very, very high up professors who, pretend to like me, wasting my time on this gender title. We now tell them, why gender? The whole faculty is asking you to, where we have heard about sexuality. And I say, I'm not doing sexuality studies. I'm doing things on gender. So even within the academic palace, so you can see that gender issue and then gender studies is a latecomer. And you see a concept that everybody is trying to understand and grapple with. And you see a concept that personally threatens. When you are talking about gender, it's as if you are exposing what they do in the private. It's as if you are talking about this man, this woman. So I now talk about the issue of the environment. So you cannot, even when we give the student the power and the voice, you cannot take the environment from them. And starting with our students themselves, we give them a voice. You give a voice over what? You cannot put new wine into old bottle. So for example, we start with our students. How engendered are they? What understanding do they even have about the gender issues? For them to really understand the agony of what older generation are doing to younger generation. And we had also gone through it, and thank God this newer generation might be able to deliver all of us. But they need to start from the point of view of understanding, what is gender? What is the condition of gender? I want myself contributing to it. Because you then look at student population as it were, that every one of us, we are guilty of one gender problem of another. Not because we intend to, but because we have been schooled into it, and we have been programmed into it. And it's a normative order. We are fighting against ourselves that we don't have an understanding about. So I start from that point of view. So it's a critical issue that you cannot take at the surface. You know, you need to start with yourself, understand the issue. Because when you talk about sexual harassment within the university campuses, yes, we quickly talk about the adults. Even within the younger generation, you know, how boys and other students is also a perpetrator. You know, so it's like, it's not about the age, it's about the divide between men and women, irrespective of age. When you say they are men and boys, there's a way they think. Why do they think that way? Why will you have a girlfriend, and what you think about that girlfriend is to look at her as something that, you know, as a product of usage, you use and dump. It starts from there. So we need to revitalize the issue of gender debate, you know, beyond, because it's like we are treating the symptom when we just say, oh, sexual harassment. But what we call underlying problem tree issues, we need to grapple with them. We need to deal with the environment. And I can tell you there's a lot in the environment that we need to deal with. Even for us to be able to step down neatly on many of the programs that is now coming up. Because at the end of the day, a university is a system. It has its own system of
absolutely
working. Yes. So we need to, there are many actors in the frame. We need to understand ourselves. We need to understand our language. We need to understand, you know, the division of labor. What as students we can do, we can arise with the wisdom and the, you know, an environment that becomes so gender sensitive. There's a cooperation, you know, to deal with whatever we find after the whistle is already blown.
Thank you very much for that, Prof. Yeah, so I'm going to come back to you. So, but I would like to move right to the Speaker of the Nigerian Youth Parliament. I don't know if she's online. Do we have her online yet?
Yes, I'm right here, please.
Awesome. So I would start off by saying that we have an understanding that the Nigerian Youth Parliament is that veritable platform, you know, that creates an opportunity for young people to transition seamlessly, you know, from what they experience in terms of politics and governance in environment of learning into mainstream politics. And it's, you know, really interesting to see that one of your priority issues is sexual and gender-based violence. We focus on sexual harassment in environment of learning. It would be good to actually hear from you what your success stories are. How are you addressing the seminars across Nigerian campuses?
Thank you very much. I think the previous speakers have spoken so much on the topic, and I think that for me, I would speak genuinely from my strength as a youth advocate, as someone who is in the civic and advocacy space. So for me, our part of the things that we are engaging on the National Youth Parliament, and even myself as a woman or as a young woman who, one way or the other, by direct experience or indirect experience, I've come across some of these incidents, either verbal harassment, whether physical or even sexual harassment, as the case might be. And I think that one of the things that I am mostly committed to, and the Parliament is committed to, is to see representation and to have more women in position in the decision-making process. The Nigerian Parliament was solidly behind the gender bill, we're solidly behind the Minister of Women Affairs, and you know, we were truly committed to ensuring that we see that representation, when we have more women occupying the position, leadership position, making decisions that would favor women, adopting and promoting policies that will ensure equal opportunities for women as well. We strongly believe that when we have more women in these positions, when we have women taking leadership positions, taking other non-traditional or cultural positions, then the chances of having our voice being heard, chances of having our concern being heard is more improved than when women are just at the receiving end, or when women are just at the less authority space to speak as well. So, like I said before, my own focus is having more young women harness their power politically in terms of civic engagement and advocacy, for young women to be able to speak up, for themselves and find the political strategy to advocate for what is really important to them. And I think that at the long run, the cultural, traditional, religious belief about the role of women, the place of women, the essence or value of women can then gradually change as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Isao. I would say that even from personal interaction with members of the campus community, the aspect you're actually addressing is really critical. We understand that it's really important that power is evenly distributed. And to say that, as a matter of fact, there is a growing body of research that actually indicates that in spaces where more women are integrated into administrative positions, there are lesser sexual harassment claims. So I think also that as we all work in these spaces, it's also an opportunity for us to advocate for more women in some of those positions so that they are also part of the structure that also enforce policies, that also make policies. Thank you very much for that. So I'm going to go to Dr. Lanike Adelako now. Interestingly, your institution is one of the institutions where the Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua Foundation is, supporting with policy design and implementation, and also deploying the whistleblowing platform. This is also an opportunity for us to hear directly from you, about what's going on in your institution, and what are the success stories, and perhaps are there challenges that we also need to, listen to, hear from you, and also get a sense of how to navigate the terrain, also in terms of even replicating the model that Yar'Adua Foundation is currently implementing in your school.
Thank you so much. I must really thank the foundation for the good work they're doing. Proud to the engagement or the collaboration with the foundation, I could beat my chest that AUN is a safe-learning environment for all. But when we started this project and we conducted a needs assessment, we realized that we were actually far from the truth, and it was a mere perception. So it's a good thing that we did that, and we realized that a good approach was for us to have a kind of community ownership in terms of the policy from inception. So we made sure everybody were involved. We involved the students, we involved the staff, the teaching, the academic and non-academic staff. We involved the manager, the staff at the managerial level. So we got input from every aspect. And with this collective effort, I think it's really paid off. And we realized that lack of awareness is a major challenge. That it's something for you to have a policy. It's another thing for people to know that there is a policy and how it works. And we got a boost when the whistleblowing platform was launched, because even with the policy, people knew, okay, there's a policy, there are forms you have to fill, but people, not just students, but members of the community did not really know how to go about reporting without being compromised. So there's still this fear of probably consequences if people speak up. So, but with the policy, we realized that there was a kind of change. It was very gradual, and people were a bit hesitant in the first place. But we realized that there was a gradual shift of mindset, especially with the survey we had. Then people started speaking out. It started with a student approaching a staff that she was comfortable with, and the staff took it up, and a committee was set up, and we investigated, and that led to a lot of students coming forward, complaining about the same faculty. So, and we encouraged them to speak up, and this really opened up a can of worms. And when the whistleblowing platform was launched, this was another experience. That, okay, so we can actually lodge a complaint without having to face anybody, without having to interact with anybody in person. We can do this anonymously, and we can do this by identifying ourselves. So we got, initially we got some anonymous reports, I'm sure it was to test the platform. And then initially the students that lodged the complaint were hesitant to disclose their identity. But when they saw the approach that the university took in investigating, they actually came forward and told us a lot of things. And this was an eye-opener. So we had an increase in the number of reports that we had. We saw a situation where there was a boost in confidence, and people had confidence in the system. And this was made possible by the fact that we had the right leadership in place, because without that, we wouldn't have been able to achieve anything. And in terms of challenges, yes, we still have people that still have doubts in the system, especially when, with the interaction with the whistleblowing platform, we still have some students that are not comfortable using the platform because they believe that somebody will still have access to it before it gets to the committee that will investigate. And this brings about a kind of reluctance. But the way the university has handled that is to encourage students to still speak out. If you are not comfortable using the whistleblowing platform, you can still speak to anyone you're comfortable with. And that, the policy places a duty on the first point of contact in terms of reporting to now take it up and lodge the complaint on the whistleblowing platform.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I'm still going to come back to you. So I would say two things stood out for me, when you just spoke now. First is that there is a place of institutional courage. And when there is institutional complacency or neglect or even betrayal, it also impacts on people's capacity or trust or confidence in the system. And the other thing is that people are not reporting cases doesn't mean that the climate is not permissive of sexual assault or harassment. It just could be also that there is no effective grievance redress mechanism for people to explore. So that's also something that we need to put our minds to. So thank you very much for sharing. So I'm going to move to Teniola Balogun. So as a prominent young spoken word artist, you've been at the forefront of advocating for safer spaces for young women to thrive in university communities. And it would be really good to hear from you to get a sense of, what the drivers of sexual harassment are in environments of, learning.
Thank you. When you ask about the drivers of sexual harassment or GBV on campus, I think there are quite a few, but I'm going to go with harmful gender norms, a lack of a defined policy on sexual harassment, slow response of university authorities to report, and power play. I mention these because I feel it is they're like a peg building up harmful gender norms, lack of a defined policy, slow response of university authorities, and power play. We are not unfamiliar with the culture of gender bias that unfortunately still exists, and how women have been on the receiving end. Unfortunately, it is detrimental to the point that some people believe that one gender have sexual entitlement over the other. And Professor Aina mentioned earlier that some people have been schooled in this, that they do not even realize that this is gender-based violence, and some of us have even been perpetrators without knowing. So these harmful gender norms find their way to university communities, and then your victims. Some of them are aware of these, and by all means, they try to seek justice. But where do they turn to? Who should they ask? And in some cases where there are guidelines to follow, there isn't, the policy in place is ineffective. And trust me, GBV is no fun experience. No one wants to have to retell her story over and over and over again. No one wants to be pushed. Go to this person, go to that person, and you hear, oh, I sympathize with you. We'll try to do something about it, and at the end, to no avail. In Article 2, Section 5 of Bayero University Kano Sexual Harassment Policy, it states that one of the duties of the committee is to dispense cases in the fastest way possible after it has been reported. This tells you how important it is to take care of these reports as soon as possible. Because these victims or survivors of sexual harassment or GBV do not have to re-experience it in terms of retelling what has happened to them. No one wants that. And that is why I am glad with the whistleblowing platform that the Yar'Adua Foundation has organized with universities like Bayero University Kano. To conclude that, a slow response from universities will make victims or survivors of sexual harassment cower.
Right.
It would make them hesitant in reporting. And this brings me to power play, which does not necessarily mean that the perpetrator is in a position of power, although it is still within the context. If there is the notion that there would not be consequences for actions, perpetrators will continue to act.
Right. Thank you very much for that. So I'm back to you, Prof. You wrote a book, which I think I've read up to 3-4 times. I think your inaugural lecture, 2 halves make a whole. Yeah. Is that it? Am I right? Right. So when I think about 2 halves make a whole, I think about inclusion. Yeah. Which also means that, or which implies that, you know, people who are directly affected by a particular structural inequity have to be also directly involved in the design and implementation of policies and practices that affect their lives. So that brings me to the question about centering the voice of, you know, students and young people in environment of learning. So my question is, how relevant is the student voice in the design of protection and prevention policies against sexual and gender-based violence in environments of learning?
Thank you. First, maybe broadly, I'd like to respond that universities that are established gender centers have a way, either overtly or indirectly, spreading the news and then spreading knowledge about gender. Again, you find out that such centers then help to establish gender policy, as it were. I'm trying to locate how our response to sexual harassment can actually work. That it cannot work as a silos. It has to work within an environment that is a little bit broader than the problem itself. Because if like I've said before, if the environment is not friendly and responsive to issues of gender, even when you have a committee on sexual harassment, individuals within that committee are not gender sensitive, and they are like the police who will tell you when you get to the station and you are just a survivor, and we tell you they do enjoy it. That is how my colleagues will react, even when you have such a committee. So first of all, you need to ensure that the people you are putting there, it does not even matter when they are women. When you don't assume that because somebody is a woman necessarily understand gender issue. So you need to put people who already has been who are familiar with the issues and who are committed to it. So in terms of students, I think in my university now, with a lot of work that we have done, it has even gone beyond sexual harassment issues. Any committee that is directly talking about the welfare of students, whether it's about their accommodation, whether it's about even the tuition administration, there must be a student within that committee. So students are now being represented in high-powered university committees so that there can be a voice. And I'm sure that the current sexual harassment committee at OAU also has inclusive in it membership of students. So there are also students are also in membership. There are men and women, and you can see a lot of improvement, but we are still not where we're supposed to be. And the problem is sometimes when as a committee, and that reminds me about the I know I'm in a public space, of the case we had at the university. You find out you are genuinely doing your work. It gets to a stage where decision things that you are embarrassing, not that they want to cover, but then it's like, we need to handle. So there is a lot of paradoxes, that you need to face. And I think for me, in terms of students' participation and empowerment, is that we need to really empower them legally, to empower them legally, to be able to be empowered to the extent that they can take action even beyond a local committee. And that also goes, if you go abroad, you have university police system that is directly linked to either the state, the subnational, or the federal, because these are criminal issues. Although the university has its own way of mitigating to an extent, if it's established to be a criminal case, the university can only take an action as it were in dismissal, but it will not make a judgment. It has to be properly prosecuted. So, and I think that the way to then engage students, first of all, is to create more pool of staff who can work with them. And that gives me an example. When I was dean of a faculty, I created a female forum, and I started working with them. And I started work, and within a year, they were empowered. They could report, and they can speak up, and everybody in the faculty knows Mama is now in this office. And for that, you then see that the climate change a little. So for me, is the female lecturers themselves have to be committed to this process. There are some who would like to blame the girls rather than understand the issues, and it's also because of their own training and because of ignorance. So we need to enlist more female lecturers to work with students, and for female students to have a space with female lecturers. And the paradox you will find in Nigerian universities is that it's easier for a female student to open up a male lecturer's room for somebody to listen. When it comes to female, there's a problem because there's more of judgment. So these are some of the things that I feel that in establishing this horizon of change, we also need to work, with a bigger support with female lecturers in Nigerian universities, so that they can take on the whole issue of mentorship, the whole issue of role modeling, and that the female student can start to have more people to trust of their kind. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Prof. I think one of the learnings for me there is the need to legally empower, members of the campus community, students in particular, for them to be able to engage the systems of accountability, such that even when they experience sexual harassment, they can hold institutions, they can hold the system accountable. And that reminds me of a news that recently broke out about a student that was raped in FUTA, that's Federal University of Technology. It went viral on the pages of social media, but I could recall that the Nigerian Female Student Association of Nigeria actually, rose to the occasion and then reeled out a data response form because they actually wanted to engage the system. So I'm going to move on to you, Dr. Olanike Adelakun, to actually get the sense of the existing systems and structures of AUN that center the voice of, students in that environment. How are you engaging students across systems and structures in AUN?
Okay, thank you so much. Currently, we have the SGA president here, and I'm so excited because I think this is the first time we're having a female president and an all-female ESCO. So that is something I'm really excited about, and I look forward to how they are actually going to make change. I still had that discussion with her. So apart from that, I guess the fact that we're a private university still gave us a leverage because it's all about the student. So it's a student-centered approach, coupled with the fact that we adopted that American-style education. So apart from the fact that the students have their own governing body, they have a department, that is the student department. So apart from that, we also have students that are involved in the residence life. So there are some RAs, some resident assistants that are students. so they can also talk to that. Then we have a mentoring system in place. I'm not really sure about other schools, but I can talk about the School of Law. We have a mentoring system in place where we allocate students to faculty members.
Okay.
So we mentor them not just about their academic progression, but also about their emotional stability and issues that may actually impede their learning, so their learning abilities. So you see that there are instances where students are really bothered about things that are actually preventing them from performing. So in the course of engaging with them as the mentee or mentor relationship, they open up on a lot of things. We've been able to resolve a lot of these challenges. So there are a lot of structures in place that give students leverage to actually speak up.
Okay, yeah, but I'm keenly interested in knowing how, this level of engagement has helped to balance the power dynamics, in that space. Because I see that you're engaging students and you're also engaging a lot of female students.
Yes. It's been able to help in balancing the power dynamics, but we cannot rule out the fact that the university is situated in the northeast and the cultural influence too as a play. But the good thing, like I said earlier, is when you have a conducive environment and the right leadership, then I think that makes it a bit conducive and workable for us. Like the previous president, Maggie, is open to everything. So she's the kind of person that entertains even direct complaints. So you don't really have to follow the hierarchy. If you are comfortable talking directly to the president, then you can just send an email. She will invite you to our office and then set the ball rolling.
Awesome.
So I think that also has permitted into all aspects of the university management. So the moment there is a complaint, you have a responsibility. Because if in the course of investigation, it is shown that a complaint was made to somebody that did not act on the complaint, then you will be seen as somebody that tries to cover up. So you may also
Thank you very much
liable.
for that. So I'm coming to you, Teniola Balogun. Madam Jumai actually highlighted the role that the entertainment industry plays or can play in addressing sexual and gender-based violence. So it would really be good to hear from you as a spoken word artist. What role can art and creative performance, like what you're known for, play in tackling sexual and gender-based violence?
Thank you. I have one word for that: advocacy.
Okay.
It has been said here many times that the first step to take care of a problem is the awareness that there is a problem. Here goes. Standing on the crosswalk, heaven is across the road. Gray was the sky and the school children's uniforms and the color of her soul. Perhaps ask the traffic man for a way, or let the vehicles run her over anywhere. The soul-piercing headlights did well to remind her of how bright it used to be amidst everything else. Shall we go down memory lane? She had mommy, daddy, and fairy tale dreams in a little home that plead and plead for daddy to stop yelling lest the roof came falling, and her mother's eyes were always as red as the hood of the neighbor's car. Yet, for her sake, her mother tried to remain as joyous as the neighbor's 3 sons. The neighbor's sons, always ruining the compound's peace with noises and maddening menace. Somehow, her mother got the blame for it all. The boy's laughter was like a dirge, and in her house, her father mourned what he thought should have been. Why wasn't she a son? By morning, her mother's teary eyes would have blossomed into a smile, and the aroma of her food was like an air freshener that would rid their home of all sadness, at least until her father came home. And her mother would remind her that she was everything, and so much more. Time lapsed, and a beautiful young woman came knocking on her being. And day after day, she embraced the tiny flickers of affection her parents showed towards each other, turning a blind eye to the inferno consuming them. After all, her mother said not to worry. Those were sacrifices women had to make. Nothing would make her mother leave not the battery, no insults. Those were simply sacrifices women had to make. And time did nothing to ease the bad blood between her father and the neighbor. She was the reminder. She was not a son, but the neighbor had 3. And the elder son's eyes had begun to linger on her. She never understood that he was a hungry beast, and she was his prey. And on that rainy day in August, the one day her mother was caught in the hassle of the market, the only day the neighbor's eldest son had come into her home, he was terrifying, and so were his hands that wandered into the desert of her being, his hands unbeaten, painstakingly harassed her innocent body. In 10 minutes he was done, smirking like an awardee at the Oscar. His trousers hung loosely around his waist, and her clothes lay tattered on the floor. She looked into the mirror after he was done, and all she saw was a ruin of war. She was the collateral damage between her father and the neighbor's enmity. Also, the neighbor's elder son had told her. And time betrayed her. Crimson painted the sheets and her thighs. Time betrayed her. Her father came home a little too early. And once again, her mother got the blame for it.
Wow.
Her father played the Grim Reaper, taking her mother's life by cold hands. For the first time, my mother did not cry, nor did she smile. She laid on the floor unshaken. This time, her body did not fight the battery. Her father played the Grim Reaper, and her life had become a horribly written horror script. Standing on the crosswalk, Haven is across the road. With a stethoscope and white coat. Should she embrace a heaven without a mother, or let the vehicles run her over to nihility? She picks the former. She walks into heaven confidently. Adorned on her was a white coat and a stethoscope. And her first patient was a girl with bloody thighs, graffitied in pain and despair. A girl she would tell to speak up and to never be afraid. A girl she would tell to speak up and to never be afraid.
Wow. Wow, that is so stimulating.
So, art, I believe, is the language for every man, because it speaks in a way that is non-invasive and allows expressiveness and self-reflection. So like I said, if there's one role art can play in curbing GVB, it would be advocacy.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very, very much for that. I imagine that your expression of, that's the old narrative, your expression of that narrative kind of mirrors the reality of a lot of people. And I imagine that would actually really stimulate, the thought of people to also think about, how their experiences, their everyday life experiences fits into what you just narrated now. But like you said, we have to keep advocating. Thank you very much for that. I'm coming back to you, Prof. This is going to be the final round of questions because our time is fast spent. I would like to talk more about the culture of silence. We know that in environment of learning, it's a space characterized by power asymmetry. And every now and then, from time immemorial, we have always highlighted, emphasized on the power dynamics in environment of learning. A lot of us saw the movie Citation. Interestingly, it was a part of the movie was shot in your institution, which is one of Nigeria's fine institutions. And it would really be good to really know how the culture of silence is a major challenge in the fight against GBV. And when you think about the OAU story, how can university authorities do better to encourage survivors to speak up?
Thank you. The power of culture of silence. I think that is actually what we are all battling against. It is right that we have a right to talk and we have a right to speak up. And I think the way I see the Nigerian institution and the society as it were at this time, I would say that it's better we use the women agency, that we don't leave the talking only to the survivor, the person, and thinking that because of one training or the other, she's strong enough to talk. As is done in most other universities abroad that are concerned with this, you find them coming out, and I see that we can push this interest to having Save Our Campus from sexual harassment group. You know, it could be men and women, you know, particularly the women, where you have women taking it and not being ashamed, even, you know, before being a victim, talking about the need for people to be able to speak up. I don't want to go into why people are not speaking up. I would rather prefer to say, because we know why they are not speaking up. You know, you're a student and you know your life depends on it. You are from a poor home. And let me tell you, those predators and perpetrators, they have a reason of picking. They just don't pick a girl. They are likely to pick a girl that will not talk. You know, a girl that they know for one reason or the other, you know, maybe she's poor and she's struggling, and they even came in to start helping, and she knows that this education is the only way to many means, so she's not likely to talk. You also find out there are studies that we have done. You know, they also, I'm sorry to say this, girls who they think have hangovers. You know, if you are fat and they think that your other young girl, you are not likely to look at you, you know, they come in, and so they have a reason. It's likely to be somebody who will not likely talk. So I feel that we need to create visible groups, and particularly use the women agency, constitute into a group into which we should also have male membership. Because I remember the one that we constituted, the female forum I had, apparently even despite the engagement and the empowering, it was because I involved the leaders of faculty associations in those forums. And at the end of the day, the girls will not come to me even directly, even when I open my door, but they are able to report to heads of associations. And through that, we're able to do a lot of resolving of issues that we're able to prevent or, you know, take an action against. So women act better when they are covered up in a group interest, or when they are engaged within a group structure. So I think we should be able to use that, and that we should not always see other men or a man as being the enemy of women, you know, because there are a lot of people who genuinely also believe in the cause of women. So we should also look for male champions who will also fight this battle with us. And indeed, unless we target more men, more students, even more lecturers, to have a good understanding and the change of orientation of who the woman person is. This other woman is a human being, for God's sake. It's humanity. You know, it's the order of the man that is not made complete unless there are two, like we have said. So we are all, you know, embedded in humanity, in essence of being a person. So if people start, you know, and you think that when people come into a university environment, that we should be able to reorient beyond ethnicity and religion, you know, because a university is a place where you are developing a critical mind, and where you are, you know, I mean, a lot of new thinking, new orientation, new theories are posited to you, and yet you find it difficult to get out of the cocoon of the ethnicity and religion. And if we're able to break the boundaries of who we are, you know, in terms of ethnicity, and then become, we think locally, but we think globally, but we are locally. We start to think ourselves, first we are human, whether it's a man or a woman. We start to have gender respect. You know, you cannot have gender justice unless you have gender respect. It starts from there. If you look at this other woman and what is in your head about her, if that can change, I think we are starting to get somewhere with sexual harassment. And the moment we're able to have more women, more men, because they are also products of social constructs, unless, because, you know, by the time they realize what is going on at the analysis, there is like, oh my God, you know, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, but my culture said this is what is right. If I don't do this, I'm not a man. A lot of men are also suffering from this gender, from this ethnic orientation about gender value. So I think we need to work more with men, so that it's not just about in a room and we're all talking with ourselves, but that because we want the other gender to also change and appreciate and respect. So if we work with them, and we also should be able, this group will be able to also act within the institution, for example, to mainstream the fact that policies, that are in existence are implemented in particular ways. You can look at who are members of your sexual harassment committee. If they have any stories that you think they should not be there, that kind of group can raise it up. So I think we need to take the bull by the horn and champion our own cause. And we cannot do it as an individual unless we start to act as a group. And when we act as a group, not just students should also act, be supported by staff, who either men or women. There are many of them on campuses who can work with the students and direct their issues. And we can go not just within a campus, multi-campus system of organizing. And nobody wants his own university to be exposed. At the level we take it beyond the local to something that is subnational or national, then we have to listen to the students. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Prof. I think I need to highlight one thing that you mentioned, which might also be, good for everyone to take home, is the fact that we need to engage men differently. Now, not as potential perpetrators, but as allies. And that actually reminds me of the Polish Man campaign. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the Polish Man campaign. It's an Australia-based campaign where whenever there are events hosted by big corporations, and then in Australia, you invite maybe someone like the Otedola or Dangote of Australia, and then they give you a condition that if you want us to speak on your panel, you must have at least 50%, women composition. And because you want to get them, to sit on your panel, you'd have no choice than to budge. And then it goes on and on and on like that. So that's also to tell you the power that men carry, and we need to begin to think about how to engage them to achieve our common goals. Thank you very much for that, Prof. Dr. Olanike, so the final question I have for you has to do with, what's the current reality in your environment, that's in AUN, and how AUN environments can be safer. What areas of improvement have you identified, when you talk about safety of students, of staff, and of the vulnerable community?
Just like Halima said, we've crossed the major hurdle. We have the institutional policy, we have the policy on ground, we have the mechanisms to implement on ground. But the truth is we still have to make sure we sustain what we have and we build on it. So what we've done is to integrate a kind of model into a course we call a 101 for freshmen, and we hold seminars. But the truth is we have to keep creating awareness, because we think in our mind we believe, we've solved the problem, but the truth is we are still far from it. I'm sure a lot of people are still skeptical about speaking up. So we have to keep working on this. We have to keep creating awareness, and we have to keep engaging the students, because the truth is if they are at the forefront of this battle and the others see that, even our students are speaking up, our male and female students are championing this cause, they're educating themselves like a kind of peer education, then I believe we'll be able to sustain what we've built.
Thank you very much for that. So I'm going to move straight to Teniola. This is the final round of questions, and I'm going to focus more on peer norms. And, think about it within the context of being a proactive or a pro-social bystander. The president of the Nigerian Female Student Association highlighted the role of everyone as intervening bystanders. And then when I think about peer norms, I think about it also within the context of those informal rules and social standards that kind of, guide or constrain our behaviors without even necessarily having the force of law. So when you look at it also within the context of advocacy, do you think that advocacy coming from peers could be effective in changing students' behavior regarding sexual and gender-based violence?
Absolutely. It is it is well known that young adults are more inclined to listen to their peers than older adults. Now, in Nigerian universities today, there are over 2 million students or thereabouts. A good percentage are within the ages of 18 to 24, an age bracket where I'm trying to find the word. Okay, sorry. An age bracket where peer influence, peer influence is valid. So, a university community, like any other, allows myriad interactions. So, imagine having an awareness campaign where you invite some students. These students go back to their hostels, their classrooms, they interact, they talk to one another, they re-educate each other on the dangers of GBV, because many of them are not even aware of these things. So that sets the tone, the word keeps spreading. And peer validation is still a thing. Yeah, so many survivors or victims are scared to come out because stigmatization. What would people around me think of me? What would my classmates think of me? Would they think me an aggressor because I'm calling this person out? So if these peers that a victim fears to speak out to are the ones advocating against GBV, you can imagine how many survivors or victims would come out and say, this has happened to me, or I know someone that this has happened to. So the bottom line is advocacy from peers would create an environment where repressed voices will be able to speak up, and also educate those that are ignorant on the dangers of GBV. So that means training young adults today that will guide future generations, and in the long run, these future generations would come to change harmful gender norms that have been drivers of sexual harassment.
Very much for that. So in 1 minute, you're just going to give your parting words, your final thoughts in 1 minute. I'll start with Teniola. Yeah, so then the mic goes around like that.
Yeah, so this is actually for school authorities. I believe that to solve a problem, you have to take out the problem-causing factors. So I know lots of institutions are working very hard to curb gender-based violence. I mean, they're sitting right here. All right, so I just have to say, policy, advocacy, collaboration. A tree does not make a forest. So collaborating with key stakeholders like government agencies, students themselves, and organizations that are driven to curb these incidents will go a long way. Policy.
Thank you very much. Dr. Lanike, your parting words?
Thank you so much. With the presence of so many students here, I would like to emphasize the importance of peer support, because we've seen that work in the past. There is a need to support yourself. You have to stand by each other, give yourselves the moral support. Because the truth is, like Prof said, one major factor that is still impeding success stories in this aspect is the blame factor. The first thing you hear, and unfortunately it comes more from the females. Why wouldn't you experience that? What were you wearing? So we tend to pass judgment when we should be supporting ourselves. So please take this home with you. It is very important to support yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Prof?
Thank you. Last words. I think we are dealing with a very complex issue here. And I feel that our government should take responsibility for safety on campus. For example, federal government is spending so much in the institutions, the state, particularly the public institutions. I think there should be a statement from government, with the newly revised gender policy. And I think that is a take for the education sector. A no to sexual harassment. And for the government itself to be, to do a self-assessment of its own institution, and then be able to know what are the drivers of sexual harassment. It starts from the physical environment. It starts from overcrowding. You know, the issue of accommodation, the issue of campus, and you don't know where your students are living, and you expose. There are too many things that are institutionally based, that if you address them, you will reduce some elements of sexual harassment. And above all, girls, take your life into your own hand. You are as powerful, as intelligent, honorable as the other. You know, I am not playing down the man, but I'm just saying that men and women, boy and the girl child, we are just different but unique. It's not a matter of inferiority or superiority. If you are a girl here, go out and know that you are wonderfully made, and you are just different from the man, and in a very unique way, because that is what God wanted for you. And the boy child or the man, you are also different in a way that your difference, merging with the difference of the woman, makes the world. We are just different, unique. It's not about being important or being not important. So go and take your own life in your own hand and fight for it. Fight for your own life. Have a voice. Speak up. If you speak up, somebody will listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, bro. This is what it feels like when you have a teacher on the panel. We said 1 minute, but you know, prof then, yeah, but it's good to, you know, have a feel of your scholarly prowess. Thank you very much for that. We've come to the end of this panel session. So we're going to take a good picture, and then we then quickly wrap up with the question and answer session. I imagine that our students here and even some civil society organization here might want to, you know, ask questions. Our panelists are still here. We'll just quickly have a group picture, and then we move on to the question and answer session. Thank you. Thank you. So we have just 2 minutes. Our time is fast spent. We have just 2 minutes for question and answer. Or I'm taking just 2 questions. Okay. How many hands do we have up? Wow. So we have 5 hands up. Okay, so I'm going to take it in numbers, and on the dot of maybe 2-3 minutes, I'm sorry, would have to stop. But so the first person, 1, 2, 3, that's the guy there. 4, that's the lady wearing purple. The man there, that's 5. Sorry. Okay, 6, 7, 8, that's the man wearing blue. Okay, there's someone at the extreme there, that's 9. So we have 9 people. Okay, so please, can you be audible enough, or you need the mic? Okay, please go ahead.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful panelists and the speakers. My name is Chida from Baba from... What? Oh, okay. So I just want to touch on what was previously mentioned from Teniola. You mentioned how advocacy from peers is important, and also it was previously mentioned the influence of the music industry. And I want to just touch on that, to how the music industry reinforces certain dangerous gender norms that enable SGBV. And we know also the level of the influence that the entertainment industry has, and sometimes how poor behavior is labeled as catching crews.
Can you go straight to your question?
Yes.
I'm going to have to cut you short so
Okay.
that other people
So
can ask their question.
I just want to ask, how can we tackle this as NGOs? How can we tackle the influence that the entertainment industry has in kind of...
How can we tackle the influence that the entertainment industry
Yes.
has on prevalence of sexual and gender-based violence? Is that your question?
Yes.
Are you directing it to anyone in particular?
Anyone can.
Okay, so the next, number 2, we're just going to take the rounds of questions in case we have people with the same question. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Titilokwe Mogaji. So on this topic in schools, we have students who also commit these crimes against the male lecturers. Students who feel they don't need to read but use their body to get grades. So what provisions is in place to tackle this, to also make students read their books?
Thank you very much for that. Number 3.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name
Can we be
is...
silent, please, so that we can hear the...
My name is Comrade Buhari Arimaballa, and I just want to advise the Federal Minister of Women Affairs. I heard what Professor Jumai have said, that about 300 cases of gender violence has been closed down.
Straight to the point.
Yes, about 300. During her presentation, she said that the
Straight to the point.
Yes, 300 cases has been closed down due to the financial constraint of the family. I think that any person who has been charged or accused of gender violence should be a trial for a criminal case. It is not the work of Federal Minister of Education, to close the case. It is a work of the police and court, to continue with the case, because it's not a civil issue, it's a criminal issue. If we continue closing the case due to the financial instability of the family, I think we are fostering the case.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Number 4.
Thank you very much for this opportunity and for a program like this.
Straight to the
My
point.
question is, for the whistleblowers, how do we ensure that their interests and their rights are protected? Because we on campus, if we come out and then we give instances of, okay, we want to blow the whistle, we have cases. Please, how do we ensure that our rights are protected as students?
Thank you. Thank you for that. How do we ensure that the rights of people who blow the whistle and their rights are protected? Thank you. Number 5. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Eniola. I'm in the private sector. From the video clip we watched, you can see that the university ecosystem is not just students and lecturers. The person that was actually violated in that video was not a student. And I hope that we see them also, because sometimes these people are invisible. So I want to encourage the students, apart from standing up for each other, to also see the cleaners, see all those other people who are within that ecosystem, and make sure that violations are not going on anywhere. That's just my advice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Number 6.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and then I want to congratulate the...
Straight to the point,
group.
please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, my question is to the prof. Thank you for the development of the policy. But you also know that when policies are developed, if you don't have a guideline to implement it, it becomes a little bit difficult. So my question is, are there guidelines developed for the policy implementation? If not, we need to develop one. And then are there templates, like behavioral templates to look at for, to be able to pinpoint that these things are kind of, gender-based violence, we call it tools. Then another thing is that you are talking about university. Are we saying that this place is based north? Have we done anything to the south? Can this particular program be replicated to the south? Because it looks as if all is well over there down the south, but I'm sure not all is well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Number 7. Number 7 is at the extreme there, yeah. Number 8 is the last. That's Sarah. Okay, that's 9. 9 is the last, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Ekpo. I am a CSO representative. So my question is having to do with consent. Where do we draw the line? Because there are cases where there are lecturers and students involved in romantic relationships which eventually lead to marriage, and that forms as a basis for sexual relations in tertiary institutions. So the question is, where do we draw the line in consent regarding sexual gender-based violence in environments of learning? Thank you.
My name is Sixto Tonyema. From the video segment, just a quick one, I noticed the victim did something to foster what was about to happen. So this question goes to Prof. Now, please, as a professional, please, what advice or preventive measures can we take? Because in our society, we say there's an adage that says prevention is better than cure. So I think that should be a very good point for us to take note. What professional advice can you give us on how to prevent such cases? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Haruna Gudia. I'm working with an NGO. So I have 2 questions. Thank you very much for the session. So my question is directed to the government representative here. I think when she was talking, she talked about some music and the like. So buttressing the point of entertainment, Andrew Fletcher said, "Let me make the songs of a nation, and I care not who makes it laws." So that's the power of lyrics. What is the government doing to curb that issue of having those kind of songs out there? The government has the power to ban songs and the likes. So what is the government doing in that? Then the second thing I want to ask is, in youth organizing and in advocacy, we encourage that there should be inclusion. I don't know whether I heard one of the panelists right when she said they have a youth president and also an all-female ESCO. I don't know whether I got it right. The question now is, are we moving from gender equality and equity to one gender, or what? So the question now I'm trying to put is, girls and boys are co-partners. So why do we even have a one gender panel? We're supposed to have a man to maybe give a perspective to what we're having.
Thank you very much for that. So I believe we've taken all the questions, so I'm going to start with Prof. So Prof, the question on consent, the question on contra power harassment, I think it will be good for you to attempt that, and policy guidelines.
Thank you for the question on girls sexually harassing male lecturers. I think this goes into our understanding of the concept of sexual harassment. If we understand the concept of sexual harassment, then it is clear who is harassing who. A student cannot harass a lecturer. Okay? A student can only seduce. And this is how it plays out. Sexual harassment, hello, yes, yeah, we are together. So when you talk about sexual harassment, the harass means that somebody is forcing yourself on someone because of a special power that you have, and you can use that power like a hammer, to take what you want from that person. So you harass the person to submission. So there's no consent there, but like we have seen, you use the occasion or the position, being a student and so on, she will not talk, you are using that. So it's what we call gender relations of power being used by a man over a woman. It can also be used by a woman over a man. As I am, if I have a student, if I have you in my class, and the devil besides, and I, as my student, and I'm forcing you to do what you don't like, even though you are a man, I am the one sexually harassing you, and you are afraid of me because I am your supervisor. You cannot speak about it. So it's about who has the power and who is using that power, you know, for your own selfish interest. That is when you are talking about sexual harassment. Yes, students come in to lecturer's room. Student will come in and they say, I'm prepared, I have a condom. It doesn't matter. You know, she's the one who is taking the initiative. But you see, you have the power to deal with it immediately. Unlike if it's the other way, the student cannot deal with it. It starts from get out of my office. It starts from calling the security on her. You can take an action immediately. You can report her to the HOD. You can't do anything about it immediately. She's never going to force you to do anything against your will, you know, and whatever she's doing, she cannot take, you know, she has no other opportunity to use over you to take a recourse of your refusing. And that is why for you to her is a sexual harassment. For her to you is seduction. But it's not every man that is strong. This has been debated even in University Senate. Oh, you know, you must be strong to work with youth. You must be strong. That means that you can sleep with your own daughter because she's beautiful. You know, a niece is with you because nature just touch you, or the air just flies in the wrong direction. Then you grip your own daughter. So that is what we are talking about. For you to be capable to be a teacher in the university, you must be able to put your emotion under control. And then the next, I don't want to take your time, on consent and marriage. There have been people who at the university will meet and they will marry. Nobody, because it's a matured environment. But the university rule is, even when you intend to, because of many things you cannot separate, you cannot have a relationship with a student that is directly in your department. Even when you are about the same age, you better wait and let her graduate, because you have power over results, either your own or your friends. You can negotiate. So normally you should know you should not be in that relationship. When that student is under your jurisdiction during that training, after leaving school, you can marry her. If you are married her before coming into the university, that is the woman coming, everybody knows she's your wife, and there's a decorum. There has to be a decorum. It's not encouraged on a large, massive level. There are institutions where there is nothing you can do about. They're already married even before it's established. But then even people will watch you, and people will be critical about our results in departmental meeting. They want to see what she's obtaining in courses outside the department, compare what she's. So there is an eye on that kind of relationship. So students can have relationship with men, but not teachers who teach you. They are not teachers. Even from other faculty, you will have to be careful, because there are also incidences that I might be in the faculty of Agri, but I have friends in social sciences. So the university does not encourage that as a lecturer you have relationship with a student. You have to put it under check and control. When she's out of school, then you can go ahead, you know, and so there might be consent. And then the third one is that this is what we have no control about, but we are now using the regulation in the school that the two people, you know, can consent. You do it unless you are not caught. If you are caught, you are still under the nose of the university to take an action against you, because we are more interested about the morality around the university system. So I think I should.
Thank you very much for that, Prof. Dr. Olanike, you might want to attempt the question on protection of people who use the whistleblower platform.
All right, thank you so much. On the issue of the protection of whistleblowers, one thing you should understand is it's possible for you to make an anonymous complaint. And even when you make a complaint and disclose your identity, there is a strict rule of confidentiality. And the way these matters are treated is in such a way that if you do not disclose to anybody that you are the one that lodged the complaint and the investigation is all about what you complained about, nobody will get to know. For those from experience at AUN, For those that went out, we realized that it was the students themselves that breached the rule of confidentiality, because the people of the committee are always professionals and they know the consequences. So you are always protected. Can I take one more? On the issue of
1 minute, please.
Of female escorts, what I try to say there is, I'm not talking about the fact that there shouldn't be a gender balance, but the point I try to make is that something is changing. That with the right leadership, you get the support. And that was why I rounded up with the need for peer support. It shows that, I try to say that because it had never happened before. People believe that, okay, the SGA president can never be a female. But when you have the right system in place, then you get to see this orientation change. You get to see this mindset change. That, okay, even when you are a female, it does not impede your ability to lead. That is what I try to, that is the point I try to make. I'm not saying, oh, okay, we've had an all-male SGA before.
Sorry, I have
and there was
to.
no issue. So that is the point.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olanike. Thank you very much to all our panelists. It's been a very robust interaction, and I'm sure you can tell. There is a final question that Madam Jumai would have to attempt regarding the entertainment industry, what the government is doing about that. 1 minute, ma'am.
Actually, there are two interventions here. One talked about the closed cases and the role of the ministry. Please, when I said closed cases, it means that these cases were reported, right, and taken to court. And so because the families did not pursue those cases, you go to court, the case is announced, nobody comes forward. At the end of it all, it could take 10 years, so the cases are closed. That's what I meant, so get me right, okay? And then for the music industry, the National Broadcasting Commission, under the Federal Ministry of Information, has had time, a number of times, to ban some music from all, going online. You are all aware of that. In the last 3 years, with the current Minister of Women Affairs, when we saw things like that, the complaint is usually routed to the National Broadcasting Commission, who look at the lyrics and how they affect the mindset. Do they reinforce gender inequality? Do they reinforce gender-based violence? And if that happens, and it's a general outcry, then that music stands banned. So that's how the whole thing works. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think with the power conferred on me, it's safe to close this panel session. And just to say that I personally have learned a lot, and we hope that this, as we're starting this conversation, we can all in our, little corners contribute to building spaces where we can begin to, grow a community of students who would use their authentic voices to speak against patterns of sexual and gender-based violence in environments of learning. Thank you very much for your rapt attention.
Thank you very much to the panelists. Yes, that took some time, but I think they deserve another round of applause. This is a very passionate conversation, you can tell. For me personally, I'm also very passionate about it. The university community is where I call home, born and raised. And yes, that's why we're all working together to see that these communities are safe for everyone. Students, staff, whether they are teaching staff or non-teaching staff. 3 key things coming out from the panel. Collaborations are very important, including multi-campus organizing. Peer support is very important, and government needs to take responsibility as well in ensuring safety on campus. Yes. So now we have, we had introduced her earlier, but she wasn't online at the time. But we are happy to invite Hajia Saudatu for her remarks. Thank you, Ma, for still, trying to join us, and we will have your remarks now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to apologize for my absence in the beginning. But as you would know, this is a very germane topic we are discussing: sexual harassment, violence against women, gender-based violence. Incidentally, and for your information, I'm in Kano, hosting 120 faith and culture leaders in collaboration with the Bayero University, where we're implementing the gender justice program with Sheikh Yar'Adua. We are looking at practical solutions to the issues of, before the courts, before the police, what can communities do? And this is coming again from a project we are doing, supported by Ford Foundation, looking at accountability for gender-based violence, working with faith and culture leaders. I have listened to a substantial part of the panelists' discussions, and one or two things that really shoot at me. The person who spoke to ecosystems of the universities. This is a reality that we must face, that universities are not islands of their own. They are part of the ecosystem. I mean, the ecosystem around them influences them. The impunity in the ecosystem also penetrates the universities. And the students are not any particular body set from Mars. They are still our daughters and our sons, our brothers, as lecturers, as students, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very important that we are able to say, within the location of a university, how much of its external environment can help solve the problems of sexual harassment and sexual gender-based violence. I believe, again, most times people will say universities are entities of their own. They are entities of their own. They have rules and regulations. They have safeguarding protocols like we have introduced in the four universities that are working with Yar'Adua. But that notwithstanding, what is their relationship? For example, I know in every campus we have unions and associations based on states, based on tribes and things like that. Can those link up with what is outside so that beyond the university setup, we are able to also link and connect to those things we hold valuable in terms of the things that are around us. The second thing that shot at me also is the issue of the risks. Now, I was privileged to be part of a review process. We assessed the performance of TED Fund, and TED Fund,
Sorry, Haja, your line seems to be breaking up. We're not able to hear you.
There's a lot of energy. Hello?
Okay, now we can hear you. Thank you.
So the thing that shot out at me is the issue of the risks. In that review, we found that the location of hostels in a substantial number of the universities that we reviewed posed a risk for sexual harassment and gender-based violence. Now, this peer support is what we need so that we can even have vigilante groups that are self-styled but outside of gangsterism and outside of this kind of cultism things, that ensures the girls can move from the hostel to the classes and have safe study periods without the fear and the risk of being harassed. So it's really positive that we have seen such. Then another thing I saw, which I think we need to also speak to the young persons, is peer norms. The peer norms that we have today in our universities and even secondary and primary schools is that you must belong. And when you belong, it does not give you the kind of protection you envisage. It could actually expose you to some other things. Compliance is enforced by so many other means. So can we flip that into protection for students instead of it being a risk for students? We also need to be very, very conscious of the fact that this kind of platforms, this kind of organizing is inclusive. Just like the gentleman who spoke about gender inclusion as an issue, as against having boys clubs and whatnot. I believe that two major things need to happen. One, the university system need to really live up to implementing the policies they have signed up. Number two, the students need to be actively involved in understanding. Look at what Professor Aina has done for us. That distinction, many of the students may never have known. So education, continuous sensitization and education is important. They needed to understand, she has given us really practical explanations about what harassment and what inducement means in terms of gender-based violence. So with these few remarks, I want to congratulate the Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua, assure our students that we will continue to work in and out, and also to say to the ladies, especially, or the vulnerable ones amongst you, that there is help out there. And you just need that courage, that conviction that you deserve to be supported and you deserve to have justice. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Hajia, for those passionate remarks. Now it's my pleasure to invite Haye Oko to talk about a photography exhibition that is also part of this public policy forum today. Haye Oko is a documentary photographer and social impact storyteller based in Abuja. Although formally trained with a degree in communications and multimedia, Haye fused her love for writing and picture making into one hobby. Starting in 2010, she was determined to capture every moment that was worth remembering until she narrowed her interest to documentary photography. She was the personal photographer to the 15th First Lady of Nigeria, Mrs. Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, until September 2020, where she transitioned from political photography to social impact photography. With specialization in social impact and humanitarian storytelling, she has worked on a wide range of documentary projects in vulnerable communities, for social and behavioral change campaigns, for international and local organizations, foundations, and charities. She is particularly interested in empowering marginalized and vulnerable women and children in Africa through the power of storytelling. She is the founder of A Woman with a Story, an AWWAS, an initiative that provides a platform for victimized women to creatively express themselves in order to create a society where there is no hiding place for any form of victimization of young women. Please join me as I welcome Haye Oko.
I have truly been asked if it is achievable, that is, ending victimization, and I don't know. Because someone somewhere will still be cruel, will still be unjust, or maybe the society will do what it's supposed to do to keep abuse away from women, and vice versa, maybe. But until then, I don't know. But here is what I do know. People will move on. People always move on and expect the victim to do the same. So whether or not the system does what it's supposed to do to perpetrators, the victim remains a victim unless a form of intervention takes place. She remains locked in the prison of memories, memories of the experience of abuse that she went through and that torment her mind. So if I can offer one woman freedom, the idea and creative tools she can use to break free from the chains of lingering memories of abuse and of stigma, I think I would have succeeded. Distinguished guests, I am a social impact storyteller, fancy words for documentary photographer, who is trying to drive social change through images. I'm also a fellow stallion from the American University of Nigeria. I graduated in the year 2012. I was also a senator at the time. Interesting that the whole SJ now is an all-female ESCO. Very interesting. I am the founder and project coordinator for AWAS, an acronym for A Woman with a Story, and an initiative of the Dan Kauna Foundation. I started this initiative to provide a platform and the necessary tools for women to creatively express themselves. Another initiative for women, I know, and I'm sorry, but not for AWAS, because through AWAS, women have opportunities for therapy, for expression, for storytelling, and for self-defense. But don't worry, we also teach them that men are not the problem. We have very supportive, amazing men who are with us in our team, who help us carry out our projects. I'm a black belt in karate, but I didn't learn it to beat up any men. I don't have trouble, but please don't look for it. You see, fighting to end victimization is laudable, and I would hold up a placard any day. However, I have realized that after the protests, after the fights, after someone has been locked up for raping a helpless girl, she is laden with the responsibility of being okay or getting over it. I have also realized that after talking about it, she being bold enough to tell her story does not translate into her recovering from the trauma that she experiences every day from those lingering thoughts. Wouldn't everyone just love to hear her story? And then all of us just, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you. And without her having to tell the next 1,000 people what happened to her, her story spreads anyway. And she's still a victim of what happens to you when a shameful story goes around about you. Stigma. And in many cases, victims still live in abusive situations, encouraged by our conniving culture of silence. So if you talk, you're labeled, and if you don't talk, you suffer. I'm sure we are all privy to the story of late Minister Osinachi, and how if she had another option, we probably wouldn't be using her as an example of women who lived in abusive situations until they lost their lives. Locking up an abuser guarantees that there is one less threat in existence, but neither that nor talking about an abuse experience over and over and over again releases the victim from the psychological effects of abuse. So whether a woman is raped, whether she's beaten, whether she's molested, the psychological consequences are the same. She feels helpless, she feels weak, and oftentimes useless. And so in 2017, I decided to carry out an experiment. Have a group of women who have ever been victimized, who have ever been abused at any point in their lives, who haven't gotten over it, go through a period of counseling, of self-defense training, of storytelling through creative expression, stories about other people, stories that portray various societal issues, stories that drive social change, that give hope and can help other women heal or other people heal. It was a time for them to look beyond themselves for a little bit and just focus on the healing of another woman by telling artistic, therapeutic stories. We found that without them having to tell the exact stories of their experiences to the world and having those experiences define their identities, they were able to learn the art of storytelling for change. They started their journeys to recovery in therapy and are able to transform emotional trauma into stories that help other women, most of whom, because of the lack of community and the fear of stigma, remain entrapped in abuse and in some cases, loss of life. Ours is now a growing community that supports women in breaking free from abuse, in standing by them, and against our culture of silence,
a community that gives women the right tools to express themselves, to recover, and then become agents of recovery and justice. We heal by helping others heal. So one woman helped gives birth to a community, one story at a time. Today, outside, we are exhibiting images created by some of the most amazing women, participants of our 2017 Made for Purpose photography workshop, sponsored by the Ford Foundation at the time. Their images are of other women in different spheres of life, in different professions, who may be going through their own problems, but are doing what they need to get by. Some of these participants have grown since then into professional storytellers for change, creating documentaries recognized and appreciated on a global level. Also on our showcase today is pottery, demonstrating how storytelling can be done on clay by engraving and an art called sgraffito, the popular artistic profession of the baggy women in some parts of the FCT. Ahead of our workshop, which is set to take place in the University of Abuja, catering to about 200 female students. So we invite you to get your hands a little dirty, to experience clay if you never have, but don't worry, there's water to wash your hands. Nobody needs to know where you're coming from. Abuse thrives on our culture of silence because we keep quiet. So I implore you to join me in building and growing this community, a support system that equips women creatively to break free from abuse, to break free from stigma, and to break free from our conniving culture of silence. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you outside.
Thank you so much, Hai. We are invited to engage and interact with the exhibition. It's just outside. And now I would hand over to Mr. Amara Wamba of the Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua Foundation for the closing remarks. Please welcome Mr. Amara.
Good afternoon, everyone. No. There's no energy in this room. Good afternoon, everyone. Or is it because I didn't say greatest Nigerian students? Okay, so if I say it, will you respond with energy? Greatest Nigerian students. Greatest Nigerian students. I hear some people shouting ASU. And we empathize and we understand why you are saying that. But it doesn't define you. Yes. Now, first of all, I would like to say, as a man, that this has been a huge learning experience. And I would like to say to all the men in this room, if you know you are a man, you're not a boy, you are a man in this room, raise up your hand. All right, it's okay. It's okay. Maybe some of you, I have been misgendering you all along. It's good to learn. Power asymmetry refers to a differential in ability to take action or to cause action to be taken. When it comes to the relationship between men and women in Nigeria and in the African context, there is a huge power asymmetry. We've heard today that maintaining that power asymmetry and perpetuating it
is bad for our society. We've been told by people from societies where we want to japa to that the pathway to building a progressive and prosperous society is through creating conducive environments, safe environments for everyone. Are you with me? When was the last time you traveled through Abuja Kaduna Road? Most people don't dare take that road anymore. Even the train, people are afraid. Do you know how much damage that does to Nigeria's economy? That people cannot function because they are afraid. I want to say to you that women have this experience on a regular basis in Nigeria. This is the reality of women, that they are unable to function, to think. In fact, they have to not only bear the burden of productivity, they have to bear the burden of fear, of preparing their minds, of guarding themselves, to go through the day protecting themselves from the harm that men can potentially inflict on them. That's in addition to competing with you in the classroom, contesting with you in an election, and winning, by the way. So when I hear some people in the audience here say today that it appears that having an all-women exco is taking matters to the extreme, I'd like to point out to you that this is only an extreme. It's an outlier. If you look around Nigeria, you will find that many student excos are all male. You didn't have a problem with that. You didn't complain about it. For years, AUN, for instance, has had all male ESCOs. This is the first time a woman is leading the school. Nobody complained about all of those years. But suddenly, a woman has risen her head above the parapet. And now, we see it as a problem. The first time. It now threatens you and your manhood. Now, I must say to you that your male ego, we live in a society where men are nurtured to have a fragile ego. Any small win that a woman gets in society, you begin to feel threatened as a man, that somehow it will affect your ability to progress in life. You're not a student of AUN. You haven't made any effort to ensure that women around you participate in making decisions, make decisions about things that affect themselves. But somehow, situation in AUN is worrying you that now we are going to another gender extreme. I think we need to advise ourselves and understand that when you have power in society, you also have responsibility. And that responsibility, you have to bear it. Because power without responsibility breeds corruption. Are you following? Are you following? Who's following me here? Now, thank you. Now, today we heard that the pathway to realizing ourselves as humans is to listen. And sometimes that is the hardest thing to do when the power is in your favor. When you hold the yam and you hold the knife, it's very hard for you to listen. In fact, the video that we watched, the narrator was speaking. The victim in the video was speaking. But few people listened to her. She said no. But the lecturer was not listening. It's very hard for you when you have power in society, and you do as a man, because society confers on you power. Your parents nurture you to feel like the man, to believe that you are in charge. Society expects you to make sense all the time. Even when there is a conflict between you and a woman, society listens to you first. But you have to learn how to listen. Because it is in listening that you learn. And when you learn, please apply the things that you've learned. And then when you've applied the things that you've learned, please listen again. The survival of our communities depend on the lessons that we learn from these voices that we've heard today. And my call to action today to all of you is, for those of us who are on the other side of the power asymmetry, listen and learn. And for women in our tertiary institutions, speak up and don't be silent. Thank you, and God bless you.
On this powerful note, we have come to the end of today's Public Policy Forum. And on behalf of the Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua Foundation, the sponsor and partners, we thank you very much for being such an engaging audience in this discussion today. Please, lunch is served outside. You're also invited to engage and interact with the photo exhibition outside. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.